Hey friends, welcome back. We're going to do some inking on Batman here, and we're just going to go for it. We're just going to start in. Now, I considered erasing, because when you use this type of pencil, what I would recommend if you're not making a video, that's the key phrase right there, is that you can actually erase this to a certain point and still see your detail. Now, I've shown you guys this in other videos, but like if I was going to come up here to the top part of his helmet, now I can see that just fine, but to you guys it's going to be a blank line, because I already tried testing this and it just doesn't show up on the camera real well. So bear with me. We're just gonna go ahead. Now I got a couple types of Sharpie. I got the ultra fine point and I've got the fine point. Now this isn't a fine point, that's just a standard, you know what I mean? But they call it a fine point because it's not a wedge, basically. So not to be confused with ladies' footwear, it's got a wedge tip to it. So gotta make sure the trick with the ultra fine point though is I'm just gonna go ahead and lightly add this, just a little bit. I don't want to get too heavy because I want to try to have some better line weights. And when I mean line weight, what I mean is there's certain areas where you can actually go ham with the marker. You can like lay down a really thick line, and then there's other areas on the drawing where something subtle, so like a real thin line would do. And we'll find an example when we come to that. So I hope everybody's well. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about discipline versus obsession. And Batman's a really good character to talk about both of those traits. But before I do, I just want to say I went ahead and checked out the movie Project Hail Mary. It's about time. Now that it's on Prime, I just said what the hell and bought it. And man, that's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's done by the guy that Andy Weir originally wrote the Martian movie. And the Martian was phenomenal. I'd say this is almost as good, if not better, in certain areas. And you're not going to get any spoilers from me. I do not do movie reviews, but I will say I really enjoyed it. I think Ryan Gosling is a great actor. I think he's the type of character that Andy Weir, I'm pretty sure he might have consulted on the film, although it doesn't say that. Now, as you guys are laying in your inks, you might decide that where your drawing is, you don't like the line. I'm kind of doing that a little bit right now, because I'm coming in here and going, maybe that I want to bend the line a little bit to make it a little bit more proportion. And after our session last time, I did come in here and tweak the drawing a little bit, as I am known to do, because I want this to look good. Look good for you guys. But yeah, that was a good movie. Definitely check it out if you're a sci-fi fan. And the thing about Andy Weir is he writes harder sci-fi. Now let's talk about sci-fi a minute. What I mean by hard sci-fi is that's based in like literal science, okay? Like Star Wars is not hard sci-fi because you've got your, and again, some people might apt to disagree, but just hear me out, guys. What I'm talking about is, like light speed and all this stuff, and nothing's really explained too much. Star Trek tries to explain, how the transporters work and all this other stuff, and kind of like a pseudo scientific, it's science fiction, right? But hard sci-fi is more like, using what we know to be true, not like warp speeds where you know, you're going to get there, and it's a faster than light culture where, you know, you don't go into space and return to the planet and it's 10 years later, and you know what I mean? Like relativity and all that jazz. So anyway, I digress. So that was a freebie where you guys tell your friends. So anyway, there's that. So just, you know, laying in some outlines here, and I will adjust the camera later. Well, let's talk about discipline a little bit. I think we can easily say that Batman is definitely one of the more disciplined characters because, as he has said, as he is quoted as saying in some of the movies, he's, you know, his superpower is he's rich. So with that money, you know, he he does some good stuff. Now he is he applies himself though, doesn't he? I mean, where did Batman get his start? It wasn't Batman Volume 1, it was detective stories, detective tales, or something like that. So he wasn't his own headliner. It was because he was a detective, guys. That's my point. My point is that he had some brains. He wasn't afraid to use them. That's one of his superpowers. So he's super dedicated. So discipline looks like it's consistency over whether you feel like it. You know, you're leaning in. You're thinking about long term. You have a goal. Being very goal oriented. Doing things you don't feel like doing is kind of where I'm going with that. You know, like I go through workout phases where I'm like, yeah, I'm really into exercising, and then something happens and then I fall off for a little bit and I get back up. Gotta get back going. I think a lot of people are like that. You know, they set what is that? New Year's resolution, and all the gym memberships, they jump up in attendance because everybody's decided, oh yeah, this is the year I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to lose weight. And then by the time March comes rolling around, what happens? You're like, oh yeah, I gotta go to the gym. And it's not because you want to go or you know you need to go, it's because you're paying for it. You know, connecting it to Batman, he trains constantly. He's constantly studying. You know, you see that in the Robert Pattinson, you know, the Batman, where he's like going over, you know, all those. I think in all the movies, to a certain extent, they represent that. It's represented pretty cool. Physical fitness, again, I think Ben Affleck looking all beast mode. I don't know if that was real or CG, you guys, but he was pretty ripped for that role. He just, you know, and Batman's constant state of readiness, regardless of personal cost, you know. And you could say the same thing for art. You know, it's like, how did you get so good at drawing? And my answer to people is you do it. You do it all the time. And one of the things I'm going to do here is like and I can always fix this later. What I'm going to do, stupid ultrafine point. The thing about the ultrafine point is you got to use it like straight on a lot of times. And my style is kind of like at an angle, especially for the camera, because I'm not trying to, oh, you stupid thing. Jeez Louise. I knew guys that would trim their markers. But I don't do that because you're already taking an ultra tiny piece of whatever this is and you're making it even smaller. No. I'm not going to do it. Anyway. But art is like that, you guys. It comes from days and days of work, quiet work, subtle, Little gains. All right, I'd rather have a bigger eye hole than the eye hole be too small. Then I'll have to go ahead and correct it. And that's always a bummer. Okay. So, I have a goal of try to fill a sketchbook, one sketchbook a year. And some years I do better. Some years not so good. That's because other stuff gets in the way, I think. Life happens. Things happen. You can't do what you need to do, but you look at anybody, the more time you put into something, the better you're going to get at it. I'm not even going to use this pen. Forget it, guys. I got to find something different. I will use this other one. Sorry, Sharpie. These are great. In my opinion, the ultra fine, terrible. So I'm going to use something with a bigger nib on it. Now, the only problem is I'm going to get the amount of control that I want, but I have now switched over to water-based ink. And that could be a problem because that tends to smudge a little bit more. So I got to be really, really, really careful. Okay, so you guys got to help me. Don't even forget, okay? So yeah, you got to be disciplined as an artist. I think that's the thing though, is if you really love what you're doing, you're going to want to do it. But it's good to have little goals. It's good to put little challenges on yourself. Not to the point where you're paralyzed, because that can happen too, guys. You get drawn and then suddenly you don't meet your goal and it's like, oh, well, screw it, I'm done. And you don't want to do that. You want to have no 0 days. Remember, you want to get back up on that horse as soon as possible and get it done, so to speak. Drawing when inspiration isn't there. When you're not sure what to draw, go. There's plenty of stuff out there. Just pick something. I keep myself an archive on my computer of just things that I'd like to draw that I never get around to. I got like all sorts of stuff, landscapes, big cats. I love cats, but big cats like tigers and stuff. Lions and pumas and all sorts of wildlife. Now, I went ahead and darkened this area, but it's not going to be black. That's going to be a dark blue. However, above his eyes here, I want to darken that in as much as possible. I'm going to use just some rough lines, I think. I was a little nervous about making some nice, clean, crisp lines for you guys. Then I'm coming to realize, nah, I'm not going to do that. I might just bubble the lines in. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to bubble this in so that when it comes time for me to come back in and figure out what I want to do, I'm not married to it. If I want to change it up, I can change it up. Do just fine. So, most achievements come from just boring stuff, everyday stuff. Just taking that time to do your hobby. I mean, YouTube is now a new aspect of my hobby. Because every time I sit down and draw, you guys, that's content. I mean, in theory. So I do. So I'll, certain programs come on and I'll kick back, put the computer on. And like I always say, I go to town. Artistically speaking, that is. So, how's it looking so far? Not too shabby? All right. So, like I said, I'm not going to put a line there, so hopefully I can remember not to do that. Because I'm going to achieve a lot of dark by just using color. Again, the black is just a courtesy. Is that a smudge? Did I smudge? Oh man. Remember what I was telling you guys? Oh, look at that. Crap. See what I was saying? That's okay. We're gonna fix it. We can fix it. We have options. We have the technology. That also comes from practice. Because I have screwed up so much as an artist. But Batman, Batman's not extraordinary because of one moment. It's a series of repeated things that he does, The things that shape us aren't usually the big decisions. It's the things that we repeat. And then, Batman, he kind of walks along that fine line between, because some people might say he's obsessed. And an obsession we can kind of look at as, kind of a control thing. Well, not kind of. I think it is a response to control. Now, I got to be careful here, you guys. I don't have myself... I have a little glove somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So what I'm going to do is take this piece of paper and come up here. I'm going to throw in some dark. Obsession can be kind of dangerous, be very dangerous, When I hear of obsession, I think of people that are like stalkers and stuff, people that won't leave other people alone, like crazy fans. The proverbial crazy boyfriend, stalker type behavior. It's like, I think obsession promises control, but it doesn't deliver. See, I want to be really gentle here, because I do want this area to be dark, but I don't want it to be black dark, I want it to have some subtlety to it. But maybe I'm being a little too ginger with this, huh? Maybe I'm just being a little too careful. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to lay in a little bit of hatching here, just to kind of give it a little bit of character. Yeah, something like that. Batman, he never moves beyond his trauma. His trauma, it fuels him in a way. His mission consumes everything. He doesn't have room for relationships. What's one of the biggest things that Alfred's always given him crap about? Like, hey, are you going to have a family? Are you, like even in the films, he's basically like, oh, it's really nice that, what's her face stopped by. And again, is Batman Bruce Wayne or is Bruce Wayne Batman? And again, he's both. He has both personas going for him, doesn't he? Just depends on the situation. How can we, that's happened to me before, where you think you're doing something that, well, how can I say this? Workaholism is a form of obsession. I mean, you can be a good worker. You can be a disciplined worker. You can go to work. You can be diligent, to be on time, to treat everybody fairly and with respect. But I think sometimes it's really easy, for me anyway, it's really easy to get lost in the weeds. I had made that a habit where I was I mentioned to you guys before that I'd done some management, and I want to just say something really quick. I think I was a really good manager, but you need support. You need support at that level, and when you don't get the support, or you don't get really valid feedback, it can be really hard, especially for somebody maybe like me who's a little bit more I don't want to use the word needy. What would a good word be? Let's say introspective. I need guidance. Even if my immediate supervisor is younger than me, I don't give a crap. It's like, look, man, how can I do better? What do you think I'm doing wrong? Because I was pulling some serious hours. Because at first it was dedication. I felt that I was being dedicated. And then later, looking back, I can tell that it was from a place of fear. And the sad thing is when I recognized it was an unhealthy pattern, and I was going to take steps to rectify that, there was a little bit of blowback on me because of it. I don't think the people above me liked that too much when I started saying, hey, this is unhealthy. Because I wasn't hourly, like you guys know management. I'm working these 10-hour days, 11-hour days. And it's not really being recognized. But when you start to set that healthy boundary, saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to leave on time. And it started with one day of the week. I'm like, okay, Tuesdays, I'm going to leave early. Even though I beat everybody into work, nearly everybody. The big boss sometimes, he'd get in there before me, my immediate supervisor. But you know what I mean? So that's just, I know people over the years that were like, oh no, man, I can't, I'd get on them for not taking a break. I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to take a break. It's like, yeah, you do. Go take a break. Because it gets back to the fact that the man will let you wear yourself down. I use the proverbial man. The man. Working for the man. No, I thought I did a phenomenal job, but you can burn out. And that's the thing about obsession. Batman, I think there's probably times in his career where he is afraid. He's afraid of, what's going to happen to the people under him, like Robin or whoever's in the comic with him, in whatever iteration that Robin is. Because there's been several, Dick Grayson or his son Damian. But you just got to ask yourself at the end of the day, what's the most important? The feelings of isolation, and you get tunnel vision too. And in Batman, I mean, we can see all that in him, I think. So bringing it back to art, you might go, okay, well, how much should I practice? How much practice is enough? And I want to quote the guy who wrote Atomic Habits. His name is James Clear, and there's a part of his book where he talks about 1% gains. And I forgot the coach that he references, but he's telling his team, can you guys do 1% better than you did last year? And these guys are like, yeah. I mean, what is 1%? But the guy said that's enough. As long as we're going in the right direction. And I think that's that's a real blessing. Like I said, anything you spend any time on, start with 15 minutes a day. Just sit down and sketch something. Just doodle. You know, how hard should we push ourselves? It's like, well, how good do you want to be? How good do you want to be? You know, I guarantee people that play musical instruments, they don't just get their 15 minutes in. No, they dedicate some serious time. I think one of the things that ruins art for a lot of guys is everybody just assumes, people that don't draw, this is what I'm really sick of hearing. Oh man, if I had your gifts and talents, man, I would be, you know, they want to, suddenly they're a businessman. Suddenly they know how to use your art, market it, and when obviously, you know, you have a plan or not. You know, I went through all that with a lot of people, you know, and, you know, and I'm going to say, I don't want to get in trouble. You know, God bless the Christian community, but dang, you know, if you're not Thomas Kinkade, you know, to some of these people, and if you don't know who Thomas Kinkade is, he's a guy a Christian artist, and his stuff's beautiful. But hey man, you know, I'm not into painting houses with a bunch of flowers all over them. It sounds kind of fun, but there's been one Thomas Kinkade, and you know, God blessed him with those abilities, and I think he's blessed me with mine. And I think that's the thing, is the contentment, setting that boundary, you guys, and knowing what you are here to do. And sometimes it's really hard. It's hard to know. There's a difference between loving what you do and needing to do this to prove your worth. You're worthy. You're worthy regardless of what you do, whatever it is you do. But I think that fits Batman to a T. You know, it's like, if he wasn't fighting crime, would he feel worthy? You know, like that obsession. I think we're going to move down a little bit, people.